Hello and welcome. This is Pam. Today I'm going to be uncovering some pretty profound research showing that parasites cause lesions, and the topic is are MS lesions parasitic? So the very lesions that they find in multiple sclerosis that they diagnose us with, they are known very abundantly with a lot of research that parasites cause lesions. And this is scientifically shown with many different types of parasites that can enter the central nervous system. This is very relevant because if MS is actually a parasitic infestation, then treatments will have to change. We will have to treat the root cause. If we haven't met, my name is Pam Bartha, and I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. This topic is very near and dear to my heart. I have been speaking from the rooftops about this, how MS is an infectious disease. It is caused by a parasitic infestation. I'm bringing a large amount of research that verifies this. We have many students that have followed the Live Disease Free plan and recovered. And I was just really sharing with my grandchildren today some of the amazing successes, showing the videos that we have on YouTube. Make sure to go and check them out on Live Disease Free YouTube channel, and take some Kleenexes with you because you'll have some happy tears. But so we have people that are recovering. We have all of this mountain of scientific evidence. Why are we stuck in this paradigm of, oh, it's autoimmune disease, we don't know what causes it, there's no cure? It's really, really unfortunate. But I am hoping that as I share this, that you will be helping me to get the word out. So this research, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify it so it's not complicated. I also always write a blog post, which you will find on livediseasefree.com. It'll either be like under the blog section, it'll be either Friday or Monday, depending on when we can get it published. But that is where you'll see the references if you want to like confirm these studies that I'm sharing with you. You don't have to really understand a lot of science, but what's really important is just to know what this means. And it's not just for multiple sclerosis, it's also for other chronic diseases also. So I will simplify the science. I'm going to share a bunch of different parasites that have been shown to cause and produce lesions in the central nervous system. And also I'm going to be sharing with you the steps we take to recover, because that's really why we're here, right? We want to get our health and our life back. So I'm going to give you the practical steps that we use, the exact steps that we use to treat or to recover from these parasites, to treat them effectively while following a holistic approach. And these parasites are really the cause of all the inflammation we're dealing with multiple sclerosis and other chronic diseases. And you'll see how it's very easy for them to cause or produce lesions in our central nervous system. This is very, very important because this is how they diagnose us with MS, right? They're looking for lesions in the central nervous system, in the brain and the spinal cord, in specific places. And so we want to understand, what are they, right? We're never told what the lesions are. It's just, oh, the lesions are mysterious. It's mysterious why your immune system is attacking itself for no reason. It's just like, it's really old, this story, and it's time to move on from it. So this really is important because it will determine how we treat multiple sclerosis and other chronic diseases in the future. So first of all, what is a lesion in the central nervous system? So it is a pocket of inflammation. And I've shared with you on many different events that inflammation is actually the war. So think of inflammation as war. It's your immune system is fighting something. It's fighting an enemy. What is the main job for the immune system? It is to fight infection. It is to protect us from parasites. And a parasite is any microbe that lives inside of us and causes us harm. So there are bacteria that are parasites, and worms and fungi and protozoa. Those are the main categories of parasites. And so our immune system is like, there's inflammation, and it's like, our practitioners are like, we don't know what's causing inflammation, but it's like, well, why is it, like, where does it come from? Oh, it's the immune system is producing the inflammation. Okay, so it's the war. The immune system is fighting something. What does the immune system usually fight? Well, it's fighting your own tissue. Well, can you prove that? No, this is a theory, and that's the whole case, is that it's a theory. But can you prove that your immune system fights parasites and different types of disease-causing bacteria, fungi, worms, and protozoa? Absolutely. That is very, very well documented in science. So we're going to common sense. That's the thing, is that everything I'm sharing with you is like, duh, it's like common sense. And why do we have this mysterious disease and mysterious immune system? It's to keep us on this trajectory of, using immunosuppressive drugs for the rest of our life. And it's brutal. Like, it's absolutely brutal. So what happens, I'll talk about like one parasite here. I've shared lots of research. I've done a 6-part series video and blog post on malaria, or babesia. It's a protozoa that infects our red blood cells. It has been documented in multiple sclerosis, and even multiple sclerosis has been considered more of a vascular disorder. So this malaria protozoa is going to infect our red blood cells, making them sick. They become sticky, and then they stick together, they clump together, and then they start to plug up very small blood vessels in our brain. So those would be capillary. And so what happens then is, if you have a blockage, you can have a rupture of the blood vessels, and if you have a rupture of the blood vessels, then you're going to get a brain bleed. And that's what's been shown in multiple sclerosis. So we have these brain bleeds. Sorry, I have been talking a lot today. Just one sec. And with the brain bleeds, what they've seen with multiple sclerosis is that the lesions in MS are always centered around a blood vessel. That is profound. They're always centered around a blood vessel. And not only that, but around the outside edge of the lesion, they find this ring of iron, which makes perfect sense because red blood cells carry iron. And when the blood goes into the brain, when the red blood cells go into the brain and the immune system breaks them down, then we have a deposit of iron. So this all makes sense. Sorry, I just have to stop for a moment. Just one sec. Okay, I'm not sure where that tickle came from, but of course, when you have to talk, right? So this is documented in science that with multiple sclerosis, around the outside edge of the lesions, there is this deposit, a ring of iron. Where does it come from? Red blood cells that burst into the brain. And the lesions are actually a way of your immune system trying to contain those whatever's spilling into your brain from the blood vessel. It is containing it in that area. So it's almost like a cyst kind of thing, but it's a pocket of inflammation, meaning that your immune cells are there and they're fighting. So like when you have a broken blood vessel in your brain, there's going to be immune cells, there's going to be like nutrients, there's going to be waste material, there's going to be all kinds of things that are going into your brain that should not go in. Your blood-brain barrier is compromised. That is significant. And so this is just one parasite that can actually open up the portal for things to enter the brain. And again, the lesions are always centered around a blood vessel, which is really, really important. Before I forget, there's also like Clostridia is a type of bacteria that it produces some really strong toxins. And those toxins are known to compromise or to give us a leaky blood-brain barrier, right? So this is like some of the ways that the parasites are actually entering into our central nervous system. So we know that, again, the lesion in the central nervous system is a pocket of inflammation. Your doctor will say that. The neurologists know that. They don't know what causes it, but we know it's just the immune system is fighting things. So, of course, parasites, but also other things that have entered the central nervous system that shouldn't be there. And again, our immune, we have an amazing body, and it's really trying to contain this damage. So lesions are clearly described in scientific studies that many types of parasites cause lesions. So this is like, why don't our doctors know this? Like, I'll be sharing the references with you, and you can just literally see tables, and you'll see like all these different parasites I'm talking about, and they will document exactly what types of lesions they produce in the central nervous system. So this is science. Why don't our doctors know this? I don't know. So different types of lesions that parasites can produce are, so these terms you don't have to worry about, but it's just basically you'll see that it's evidence, that it's legit. It's not me making this up. So granulomatous lesions, and then cystic lesions, abscesses, encephalitis, meningitis, myelitis. So all of these are different types of lesions that have been documented, that have been produced by parasites in the central nervous system. And so science believes that the parasites actually are a direct cause of lesions because the immune system is fighting the parasites, or remember I said the immune system is fighting what the toxins produced by the parasites, or even other things that the parasites have caused, this leaky blood-brain barrier, and then other things are in the central nervous system that shouldn't be there. So we have this amazing blood-brain barrier that keeps many things out of our brain, and when it's compromised, the immune system has to protect the brain, and we need to protect our immune system. So some of the toxins I mentioned, like Clostridia, I've done a talk about this, one of my maybe a year or two, blog posts about Clostridia, how it can produce really significant toxins that disrupt the blood-brain barrier or compromise the blood-brain barrier. And then also like the level of inflammation that we're dealing with is really the level of reaction that our immune system is having to these parasites. So if there's a huge amount of enemy invader, then our immune system is going to really work harder. There's going to be more inflammation. But if there is not a lot of parasites, if it's a smaller amount, then the lesion would not be lit up as active, right? It's going to be less. And of course, our immune system is always working at cleaning up the mess. So in time, the lesions can become less active, and they will show as being less active on an MRI. And some of the lesions are going to be more active. And that's where the immune system is actively really trying to deal with everything that's in the lesion that shouldn't be there. So symptoms that we experience, they really are determined by where the parasites are, like where we have this like compromised blood-brain barrier, like which nerves are going to be impacted, which nerves are closer to this damage. So the tissue damage or the lesion, like that's what causes, like whether we're having balance issues, it's one certain part of the brain, or maybe we're having paralysis, another part, or we're having cognitive functions or depression or anxiety. So it's different lesions produced by different parasites, the toxins they produce, but also the damage they cause to the tissue in different parts of the brain and the spinal cord. So they could be in your spinal cord also. And it's just like common sense. So how parasites enter and damage the central nervous system, we talked about that already, mostly through the blood. And the blood has, again, once the blood gets up to the brain, there is this beautiful blood-brain barrier that normally protects us, but there are things that cause us to have a leaky blood-brain barrier. And then also damage mechanisms. So parasites, they reproduce and they invade tissue directly. So that's one way of having the damage. And then the immune system forms these granulomas, which are the small clusters. So it's kind of like a lump or a small lump of immune cells that form in different parts of the body, including the central nervous system. And this would be around parasites and their eggs. So it's kind of like, again, the immune system is trying to contain the parasites in the eggs, sometimes forming this lump, which is a granuloma. Parasite toxins. So some of the toxins that are produced by the parasites are incredibly toxic to our body. Like they're really, really toxic. We know like with fungi, some of the mycotoxins are some of the most toxic substances in the world. And then also I talked about Clostridia. It's a nasty bacteria that causes a lot of different types of toxins. And we know with flukes that they also cause a lot of inflammation. So all these different parasites have their own toxins that they produce, and also enzyme damage to tissue. blood vessel obstruction, that's another big one, and that's more of the malaria, babesia, protozoa, and edema, so swelling. So whenever we have this inflammation, we're going to also have edema. So lesions, inflammation, and infection, all lesions are the result of inflammation, and some of these lesions are more active, some of them are less active, and eventually we can have some scarring of myelin. But the exciting thing is that what we always thought was like, okay, if I'm paralyzed, that's it. The nerves, there's been scar tissue to the nerves. There's no way we can recover from that. But we are seeing people that are recovering from damage that, or I should say inflammation and attacks that they've had for many, many years prior, like 10, 15 years or more. It's really quite shocking. So what we thought was all scar tissue is actually still inflammation, a lot of it, and that can all be recovered, but we have to treat the parasites well enough. And then another thing that we may want to do is help to support the brain to heal by giving it certain nutrients. One of them we just discovered recently is our plasmalogens, and that makes up a huge part of building back the myelin. Like I think 70% of plasmalogens are like in the brain, different parts of the body also. So we become deficient in that, and it's really important for structure and function. So if we can restore these nutritional deficiencies and imbalances and disruptions, and then we can also treat the cause, the body just naturally goes to work at healing, which is so incredibly exciting. So in the parasitic infections, inflammation happens because the immune system is fighting parasites, their eggs and larvae and their toxins, not because the immune system is attacking our tissue for no reason. And the lesions form as the immune cells surround and attempt to contain the infection. And this, like part of the war, right? There's always damage. There's going to be swelling. There's going to be tissue damage. And eventually, like with the myelin, it could be scarring. But again, there's so much that can recover that we never thought possible. So this whole very simple understanding of what lesions are really helps us to understand the root cause of multiple sclerosis better. It adds to the different parasites that have been found, that I've shared a ton of evidence of the different parasites that have been found in MS. I have an amazing one-page PDF that people are sharing with their doctors, and it's really neat. We have one student in Germany, and he went to 5 different practitioners. He finally found one that's going to support him in writing prescriptions. But he said, thank you so much for equipping me to be able to find a doctor that would help to write prescriptions, because it's really hard to access the treatments in Germany. And so he's got a practitioner that's going to work with him. So they want to see the evidence. Unfortunately, they don't have good tests, but if it's a really good doctor and they know you're suffering and they know they don't have options to serve you and they know it's safe, then why not? Why not try it? These are very old drugs. They've lost their patent. They're very safe. They're not going to hurt you if you use them properly. And what can it hurt, right? And so that's why I created that for you. I have spent thousands of hours researching all of these topics to help bring change for you so that you can actually go and talk to your doctor about this, talk to other groups, and get us to help bring change to the way that disease is treated in many developed countries, all the developed countries basically. So lesions are the battlefield between the parasites and the immune system. And this is basically, they are evidence that infection-driven inflammation is occurring and not autoimmunity. Let's talk about a few of the parasites that have been shown in science. I'm not going to go into great detail about this. I am going to go to your questions in a few minutes. But so the first one I wanted to talk about is toxoplasma, and this is a protozoa parasite that is known to infect brain cells. And it is known in science that it causes ring-shaped lesions, which can be seen on MRIs. These lesions are the result from parasites multiplying in the brain and the immune system attacking them. This also disrupts brain chemistry, and it can cause glutamate disruption, which is the neurotransmitter that excites our nerves. I'm going to talk about this, how that glutamate is disrupted not just in ALS, but in MS and in many other different types of neurodegenerative diseases. And so it's also like the disruptions they cause, right? So if you have this disruption in glutamate and then you have your nerves just firing and firing and firing, right? It's just not going to be a good thing. So this can lead to a lot of nerve damage. So that's just one parasite. The next one I wanted to talk about is Plasmodium, that's the genus of the protozoa that cause malaria. So the research that I've shared with you really suggests that this malaria or babesia, it's one of the two. Back in the day, they were treating MS patients for malaria. But with this Plasmodium, it's known to cause brain lesions. So this microhemorrhages, necrosis, and edema. So this is in science. It's known that it causes lesions. So again, we talked about how this one protozoa, it infects your red blood cells. They become sick. They become sticky. They stick to the wall of the blood vessels. They block them. We can get brain bleeds. And make sure to check out the 6-part series that I've talked about malaria and MS. Shocking how many studies, at least 75 peer-reviewed studies dating from the late 1800s to the early 1900s, that doctors were treating MS patients with malaria drugs and having incredible results with that. So I don't want that science to get lost. So this can also lead to seizures, coma, and long-term neurological damage, all of the MS symptoms that we could experience. And then the next parasite I wanted to share is the trypanosoma, and that causes Chagas disease. So this parasite will invade neurons and different types of immune cells in the central nervous system, and it produces lesions such as meningoencephalitis, glial nodules, and amastogote nests. So this again we get swelling. Swelling is called edema, neural loss, so damage and loss of function of nerves, and inflammation. Next parasite, edema. So this also has been, so there's a couple of different types of amoeba. So there's a couple of different types of amoeba that have been shown in science to cause lesions in the central nervous system. They can cause acute hemorrhagic brain lesions, and also another species can cause chronic ring-enhancing lesions. And also remember I said that where the immune cells, they kind of form a lump where they cluster around these amoebas, which are protozoa. Again, they're single-cell parasites, and they follow this, they create this granulomatose. So that's the lump of immune cells surrounding, barricading, enclosing these amoeba parasites. And so this is totally lethal. So I'm not saying that we have all of these different ones. The ones that are really connected with MS would be the malaria. Also this, I'm going to talk about the tapeworm now, because Dr. Alan McDonald has found tapeworm larvae and developing tapeworms in MS subjects that he tested. So I've talked about neurocysticercosis, which is basically when the larva, let's say you have tapeworms in your intestines, the larvae make their way into the blood, they make their way into the tissue, they form these cysts. They also make their way into the central nervous system, and so these cysts form in the central nervous system, and this is called neurocysticercosis. And Dr. Alan McDonald found these in the central nervous system of every MS subject he looked at also. And so they have been shown to form lesions in the central nervous system. So vesicular cysts, colloidal ring enhancing lesions, and glandular nodular calcified. So each lesion stage has inflammation and edema around it. So whenever the immune system is fighting, there's always this swelling, and that's the edema part. And so this can lead to adult onset seizures. That's the leading cause of adult onset seizures. So for a person who just develops seizures as an adult, these larvae, the cysts in the brain caused by tapeworms, are definitely the leading cause of those seizures. But they can also form lesions. And I mentioned the colloidal or ring enhancing lesions. Another parasite is I'm not sure if it's echinococcus or echinococcus. And this is hydatid disease, maybe it's hyatid disease. So this creates large cystic lesions in the brain, can encompass surrounding tissue and cause mass effect. So the cyst rupture leads to severe inflammatory lesions and possible meningitis. So that one I don't think is extremely common in the developed countries, that one, but shows that this is another parasite we don't know until we start testing. The next one is more relevant to us, just like the tapeworm and the protozoa, the amoeba for sure, and also the malaria or babesia type plasmodium infection. So those are protists. So now we're going to talk about schistosoma, which are blood flukes. And blood flukes are even in our lakes in British Columbia. Like, try to find pictures of real flukes online, and there are none. There's maybe one. It's ridiculous. And our students pass a lot of flukes. So there are smaller flukes, there's bigger flukes, there's blood flukes, there's liver flukes, there's pancreatic fluke or pancreas flukes. There are different types of flukes that like to live in different organs. Or maybe it's that, yes, there's different species, different cousins of flukes, but there's also, they're located wherever they settle in. So for example, if you're swimming in the lake and you get swimmer's itch, that is the blood fluke, and you're going to get these huge welts on your leg, and your immune system hopefully dealt with them all. But if they didn't get them all, they get into the blood and they start to set up camp, and they probably head down to the intestines. They start to grow and reproduce, and that's the start of them building their camp inside of us. So just to know that these blood flukes can get into the central nervous system like many of the other parasites. So it's like a lot of times the bigger worms, they live in the gut, but then the larvae, it's the immature form, they move into our blood vessels, they move into the central nervous system. And so the larvae can cause a lot of problems also. So cerebral schistosomiasis, I should mention, they also are a huge leading cause of the bladder issues because they love to infect I'm not sure if it's a kidney or bladder, but they definitely cause a lot of bladder issues in some people. And so these, again, are those lumps where the immune cells are built up around this parasite. So those are the kind of lesions around the egg and the brain tissue that's infected. And we can have spinal, so that's cerebral, so that's in your brain, schistosomiasis. There's also spinal schistosomiasis, which is known to produce lesions in the central cord causing paralysis. I've even seen research where they find like worms and larvae inside the bone marrow. It's of our spinal cord. It's absolutely crazy. So lesions form as the immune system attacks the parasite eggs and also the larva, and it produces these like lumps where it's like encapsulating these parasites. The last one is, I don't know if it's the last one. Yes, the last one I wanted to mention here is the lung fluke. So that's another type of fluke, and it migrates from the lungs to the brain, and it creates these hemorrhagic and also the granulomatous lesions, tongue twisters, in the temporal and occipital lobes. And the migration leaves tunnels lined with vascular injury. So we have vascular injury, we have these lumps where the immune system are collecting around these little flukes, and they produce these different types of lesions in the central nervous system. Sorry, there is one more. So Toxocara, which is a dog or cat roundworm. So this would be another one relevant to those of us that have MS or other neurological diseases, especially if we're not in some kind of tropical environment. So they can cause spinal cord lesions and myelitis, sometimes mistaken for MS. So this could be one that's quite common. And there's also, so that was the dog-cat roundworm, but there's also a raccoon roundworm causing widespread white matter lesions. And then also both of these can cause severe neurological disability. These parasites that are the dog or cat roundworm, they are known to cause a lot of neurological damage. They're known that they cause the lesions in the central nervous system. Why aren't we examining the spinal fluid like Dr. Alan McDonald did? Is it that hard? No. Why are we not looking at? Why aren't we looking for, is there any types of possible infections? Dr. Alan McDonald said it was really easy to find. So he went to a brain bank where they kept the remains of people that had MS and they died of multiple sclerosis. And because he's a pathologist, he was able to access that for research purposes. And he said the worms were abundant. So this was people that died and their remains were frozen. The central nervous system was frozen. So he found worms that were mating and in clusters. He found tons of the waste material, larvae, just really simple in the spinal fluid. So why are the researchers not looking to see if there's any possible infections when we know that many different types of parasites cause lesions in the central nervous system? So how parasite lesions mimic MS and other diseases. Parasite-induced lesions, they can look identical to multiple sclerosis lesions or plaque on an MRI scan. And lesions, the migrating lesions, the ring-enhancing lesions, and clustered granulomas are really common. Without proper testing, and we probably don't have very good testing for that. I mean, if somebody's dead and you do an autopsy, but right now they're not, if they do a spinal tap, they're not looking for parasites. So without proper testing, patients can be misdiagnosed. And is it a misdiagnosis, or we're calling it this inaccurate label? That's more like what it is. We're calling it MS when it's really a parasitic infestation. So it's not autoimmune. It's not your immune system attacking your tissue. And if that's the case, then it only makes common sense that you should not be using immunosuppressive drugs that will make you weaker. We need our immune system to protect us from infections. So clinical consequences of parasitic lesions. So again, this is in science. They cause, so the lesions that are known to be caused by parasites, when you look in the scientific literature, they know that they're associated with seizures, with also buildup of the hydrocephalus, so buildup of fluid in the brain and from obstruction of flow. Also paralysis and vision loss and numbness, migraines, chronic pain syndromes, long-term cognitive decline, right? That's huge. I was talking to a lady today and she's like, Pam, I hope we can do this call. I don't know that I can focus. I'm having such a hard time with my brain. So that was huge. Like it's really awful. And then many other studies show that the parasitic brain and spinal cord lesions produce a wide range of neurological symptoms such as spasticity, weakness, poor balance, seizures, headaches, cognitive impairment, and this is both in human and animal models. So how do we diagnose parasitic lesions? So how they're doing it is through MRI, the very same things, CT scans, the very same things they're using for MS. And then also when somebody has passed away, looking at their tissue and also looking at blood to see if there are any changes in their immune cells. So let's say high eosinophils, which is called eosinophilia, and just looking at parasite blood work, which is really poor these days. Actually, there's one of our students and I think he's in Italy, and he actually got quite an impressive parasite panel done, which I've never seen. This was, I believe it was a blood test, and it showed all kinds of different, tapeworm, roundworms, and I don't know about flukes, but for sure tapeworms and roundworms, which is shocking because we normally don't see that. Usually it's a waste of our money. So the different treatments, when we want to recover, all I can share is that they're really challenging to treat. So the roundworms, the tapeworms, the flukes, by the time we have a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis or some other disease, we have hundreds of worms inside of us. Yes, hundreds. And it might take you like a year to, if you're treating effectively, or maybe even a little longer. It's not that you're going to be sick for a year, but like I have students that have been in the program for months and they're still treating and they feel better than they can ever remember feeling, but they're still passing worms. Not as many, like it becomes less and less and less, and we are going to get better. And we do cycles, right? We're treating the big worms, the protozoa, then we're hitting fungus, then we're treating the small bacteria and protozoa, and we're doing cycles. But so this is where, as I continue to research, what we have found for sure is that using parasite drugs with oxygen therapies, with herbs, plus doing all the prep work before we start treating, that's what really helps us to recover so much more quickly. So although we might be passing the odd worm yet, we're like, by the time people don't have the neurological symptoms, they're probably like an average person who still has some worms. I think all of us have parasites. Maybe not a newborn baby, but after a few years living on planet Earth, we all have a few parasites. If you have a very small number, it's not going to impact you. But if you have hundreds of worms, and it's also the parasites they contain, they're infecting us with Borrelia, they're infecting us with all kinds of different small parasites. And so that really makes us sick. So your treatment plan is going to be individualized to you. It is going to require oxygen therapies and also parasite drugs you energy test well for. Hopefully someday we'll have better parasite DNA tests, like the one in Italy. I'm going to try to get the name of that test because that was quite impressive what they found. I'm not sure if that was just like muscle testing or what, but pretty neat. So if you're treating roundworms, that will require different types of parasite drugs versus tapeworms versus flukes. But I've talked about some of them. So there's albendazole, there's mebendazole, there's praziquantel, there's Alinea, parental palmitoate, niclosamide. There are many, tinidazole, nitazoxanide, I think I shared, Alinea. There are many different parasite drugs. There's also triclobendazole. So again, it really depends. And our students have found that combining, let's say, 3 or 4 parasite drugs together is going to be a better killing effect than just using a single parasite drug. They're not that effective. They're not that helpful. Could you imagine if they would start, I don't encourage spinal taps because they're very invasive. They could introduce infection into your central nervous system. But if they are doing one and you have okayed it, could you imagine if they kept your spinal fluid and then you could take it to a pathologist and have it examined? Isn't it interesting that our doctors are not allowed to look under a microscope? They don't have, they're kept so busy and that's taken away from them. So they just put it to the lab and whatever the lab gives them, and that is just so wrong too. It's totally wrong. Just the way that our practitioners have to practice in developed countries keeps this whole system going. So parasites have been proven to create lesions in the central nervous system. Many different types of lesions and many different types of parasites cause lesions. This is proven in science, in not one paper, but multiple papers. So why are we saying we don't know what causes lesions when the scientific evidence shows that lesions are caused by parasites? And then as we treat these parasites, what our students are finding is that the inflammation subsides. The parasites that cause this inflammation are gone. The immune system doesn't have to work. The lesions heal over. They're not active. They completely heal. And people have restored health. So the key takeaway is, again, that MS is not a mystery. It is not our immune system attacking our tissue for no reason. There is a war going on. There is inflammation. Our immune system is doing its job. It is treating the infections that cause the symptoms that we're dealing with in multiple sclerosis. And I've shared tons of, research showing the different types of parasites we have. So I mentioned a few that are that cause lesions here, but that have been linked to MS. So those would include different types of flukes and also the roundworms and also tapeworms. So those are really, and the big one is the malaria. So the protist, it's either Babesia malaria or something similar that infects red blood cells. So those are documented in multiple sclerosis patients. and they're documented that those parasites produce lesions. Why are we still at the standstill? Are you losing patience? I've lost patience a long time ago. And so these lesions, they don't mimic MS. They cause the symptoms we have in MS, and MS is a parasitic infestation. All right, so it's very important that we share this information with groups, with family members. Actually, there's a lady that I spoke to today. I had a call with her, and she's becoming a wellness champion. And she's like, it's so great. Like, I believe that it's by the grace of God we're doing this work. It's by the grace of God. I've been alive 35 years recovering from these infections, and that we've had so many people recover. And so she found us, like, she was suffering so badly that she was like, I just don't think I can live any longer. And she was praying like, Lord, and we've had several students share this, like, please take me. I can't live like this. It's just, she couldn't even focus. Like, she's like, Pam, I couldn't even hardly fill the form out. I don't know how I'm going to be able to communicate with you on this call with you. I'm really concerned. And so she felt that desperate maybe a couple of weeks ago. And then she literally felt like God gave her, like, no, I want you to pray for remission. So she's like, okay, in her spirit, she felt, I'm praying for remission. And I'm sharing this with you because I really, truly believe God answers prayers. Like, this is like, I see miracles every day. Anyhow, so she decided to pray for remission, and literally within a day or two, she literally found me, and it made so much sense. She's seen so many videos, and so many things have not been helpful and not made sense to her. She literally has been on our Live Disease-Free diet for a couple of months, her version of, like, following what I have on the website, but not where I've been like giving her feedback. But she has already been able to, she doesn't use her cane anymore, just from using the Live Disease-Free diet. She used to get up 6 times a night to go to the bathroom, and that's maybe once, if that, now. She felt like she had this 100-pound weight on her back, and it was painful, and it was heavy, and it was exhausting, and that's gone. What else? Her energy has improved, her energy, and she's actually starting to work out now. Again, the cane, not using. And this is doing these things, just making small changes in her diet. Well, she said she was a sugar addict before, and she was eating a lot of sugar. So the parasites make us crave sugar. So she's not having a drop of sugar, but the diet for her would make so much more benefit than any MS drug could ever do, just the diet. And it's simply just making the parasites she has less active. And she's had a lot of gut issues. She's had a lot of bowel issues. Like, she has all of the telltale signs of multiple sclerosis. She has all of the, all the things I talk about on these blog posts of the gut disruptions and the cognitive function and the constipation. She doesn't sleep, right? The parasites really affect you when you're trying to sleep. They really affect your bladder function. And she's so excited because she knows she's going to heal. So she's just thanking God because she has her answer. So if this is the first time that you have met me, please research a little bit more, because this is truly your answer to treat the root cause. All right. So I'm going to go to your questions. Hi, James. Thank you so much for your kind words. Hi, Eugene. How can I treat the parasites? Eugene is asking. So what I would do, Eugene, is watch my masterclass training. It's like about an hour, but it explains all the steps we take to recover. In a nutshell, it is, you first have to support the body. You have to be having daily bowel movements. You have to be sleeping well at night. You have to decrease the food to those parasites. That is really important, because then you will tolerate the treatments. You will be able to just feel better as you're treating, instead of, like, if you feel really sick and awful and you start to take a lot of parasite drugs that you need, you could end up in the hospital. Like, we had one person who did that, didn't get guidance from me, and said, I just wasn't ready. I started taking them, and it's not like he was going to die, but like if you have parasites in your liver enzymes can go up very high, and that can be scary. You can have liver, or you can have parasites in your pancreas also. So your pancreatic enzymes can be affected, your liver enzymes. That's not everybody, but it can. And you can just feel horrible because when you start poisoning the parasites, if they're really active, they produce more poisons, and then they make you feel terrible to the point where you may check yourself into a hospital. So it's really, this is for people that have chronic disease. That's the thing, right? We're really infested. So it's very important to support the body, make the parasites less active, be feeling a lot better, just as this news. So all the work she's done by her changing her diet, she is probably like, she just has to work on the daily bowel movements and sleep, and maybe a few fine tweaks. So maybe 2 to 3 weeks, she's going to be starting to treat. But even before then, she can start doing the oxidizing enemas, passing tons of worms. I literally have hundreds of thousands of pictures, but we have worm pictures, many of them every week from the students coming in. And so she can start passing those right away, and they can make a huge difference in her symptoms also, improvements. So number 1 is getting ready to treat. Number 2 is getting energy tested to see which herbs and or parasite drugs are testing the best for you. And then to work with understanding what your, like the safe way to take these parasite drugs, but effective way to take them. There are specific protocols that are safe and effective, introducing them slowly one at a time. But our students usually test well for 3 to 5 parasite drugs at one time. We don't start with them all because that's too much. People would feel horrible. But eventually they get to the place where they can take them all and they tolerate them. They can exercise, they can work. It's just the level of parasites that we have. So, and then as we're treating, we make sure that we do other things, like we build a healthy lifestyle, we work on our mindset, we deal with emotional or psychological trauma we've been through, like all of the holistic part that we know that's important. But treating parasitic infestations is never going to be a single pill cure, and it's not an easy thing to do. Like, it's shocking that we're still alive when we have hundreds and hundreds of worms inside of us. And that is very common with people that have disease diagnosis, and also for people that have just scary neurological symptoms and they're heading towards a disease diagnosis. You're very welcome, Quincy. Please share this with others, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a 1-page PDF of this. Again, it'll be ready probably by Monday, so please bear with me. And if you find Live Disease Free on Instagram, there we can send you the PDF right there. So then what you might want to just type in, like if you follow me on Instagram, Live Disease Free, and then message me, direct message me. You could do this in Facebook also if you're on Facebook, Lesion, and we will make sure that we get you the 1-page PDF with all of the studies. That's something you can share with practitioners, and then you can share it with different groups. But there will be also the blog post on our website that you can always go to. So I want to really equip you well. So Helen, biopsies show that parasites are involved in lesions? Yes. And cryptolepsis tincture kills malaria in 3 to 5 days. The problem is, Lisa, that yes, it is one of the herbs that are really helpful, but malaria is not that easy to treat, especially if you have cerebral malaria. So a lot of the herbs, it's hard to get them into the central nervous system. There's oxygen type therapies also that will kill malaria literally within like a day or two. But it's like, how do you get it all into the central nervous system? Because we're talking about cerebral malaria or cerebral babesiosis. Hi, Maurice. So do you think parasite detox and binders work? So as far as, it's more parasite treatment, not detox. You can't, you can take detox like binders that will absorb some of the poisons, but they're going to keep producing poisons. You actually have to physically treat them with different types of treatments. What causes a leaky blood-brain barrier, Pam? So I'm sure that I have done a talk on this where I have shown different toxins that are produced by bacteria. I talked about malaria, and I think other things too that cause leaky blood-brain barrier. Hi, Lorraine. Can STDs be a cause of multiple sclerosis? So, no, I don't think that they are going to cause MS, but I know that, let's say, so there are people that have certain STDs, maybe they can't treat it. So like, I'm trying to think, if the STD can be treated, that's great. But if they can't be treated, if you have a lot of parasites, then you're going to have more symptoms of the STD. But if you treat the parasites very often, you can treat the STDs better. So the parasites suppress your immune system, making you more susceptible to the Lyme infections, making you more susceptible to symptoms of other infections. The STDs are definitely going to be immunosuppressive because your immune system is trying to fight them also, but they're not, I haven't seen that they're like a direct cause of lesions in multiple sclerosis. So I'm in Canada, and we serve students all over the world, just so that you know. So can I do these tests? So the energy testing is something you would do with a chiropractor or a naturopath, and you would have to have, or they would have to have sample, like a single dose of herbs and parasite drugs in their office, and they can energy test you. So there's chiropractors will do applied kinesiology, naturopaths can do some type of energy testing. There is like muscle testing, ART is advanced muscle testing, but they might also use machines like the Vega machine or an AMA machine. So what they're doing is they're taking a remedy, putting it in your energy field, and they're able to see if there are changes in your energy where you feel more balanced or stronger. That's a simplified version of what they do. So please tell us again how to join the program, Lorraine is wondering. So what you would do is you would just go to watch my masterclass training. So it'll be above or below this video that you're watching. It'll, I think it's listed already. So you can just click, once we're done, you can click on that link, watch my masterclass training. I go through a lot more research of the different types of parasites. I go through case studies of many people that have recovered. And then I also share the steps in a little bit more detail. And then if you feel like this is exactly what I've been looking for, I believe I'm dealing with parasites and I want support, then you can fill out the form. You'll see there's a form you can fill out. And then if you feel that you are ready and that this is something you want to do, then you and I can have a talk. And number one, you're going to give me information about your health so I can get to know a little bit about your health history. And then I can help to make sure that we tailor this towards where you're at, what you've done, what diagnosis you have. But also before we meet, you're going to listen or watch the Coachathon. And the Coachathon really helps you to understand a lot more detail about the Academy, all the steps we take, how we access practitioners, what we need help with, how we access treatments, what the cost is, what the time commitment, all of that you'll know before we talk. And if you know all of that, then when we talk, we can go right to your questions, whether it's about, like, is this going to work for me? This is what I've had. How do I do this or that? Or like, if you live in Europe, how's that going to work with the time zone difference? So all of that we can talk about on the call. A lot of it is addressed though in the Coachathon video. And some people just join from watching the Coachathon. You will be able to join then if you want. I will still have a call with you. I love to have an introductory call with all my new students to make sure it's a good fit for them and to just make sure that we get them off to a good start. That's the biggest thing, to make sure that you're off to a really good start. And we just had our call. It's always on Tuesday nights is our Live Disease Free Academy call. And it was so amazing. We've had a couple of students just going through the program. They're back to work completely. One of them is completely symptom free. I shared another lady she's still treating, and she is like, number one, she is like out of bed. She was in bed for 10 years and she's able to garden and she's able to work out. She is also able to read. She couldn't read books for 10 years. She was on psychiatric medications and in bed for 10 years. And she is also tutoring. So she's going back to work to tutor. Amazing. And she is just so on fire. Her like everything has improved. Her vision is more vivid. She doesn't have MS. She had other conditions. I'm pretty sure she doesn't have. She might, but I don't think she does. Another student who was, I have to put these up on I have to post them. I'm getting help with, I don't have enough time for all of the posting, but another student, like 5 days on one of the parasite drugs, and she was able to start walking without her walker, just 5 days on the first parasite drug. And I just got an update from her, and she was able to host a birthday party, 18th birthday party for her son. She looks beautiful. Like she completely transformed, like healthy, vibrant woman, and just enjoying her family. And she's still treating, not done yet, but all they can say is life-changing, saved my life. And it's by the grace of God. That's where we have to give all the glory to, because I ask a lot, and I really believe it's a lot of answers to prayers. So you can join by watching the masterclass training, filling out the form, booking a time with me, and also just watching the coach-a-thon. You'll get that. You can join right then and there and start, or you can just chat with me. Herpes, that's what I was trying to say. Are herpes of the brain associated with MS? I haven't seen anything in that regard. I just have seen that people that have herpes, that live a very clean life, that really fix their microbiome, restore balance, that a lot of times they become symptom-free. So that is something to think about. Amanda, how can we get that list? I'm not sure the list of what. Just let me know if you're still on. Is glucosamine, chondroitin, a good vitamin for MS? It's not really going to make a big difference. You had an entamoeba, that's really common at the start of the year, and a tapeworm in your, I think you passed. So the entamoeba is not going to be a main cause of multiple sclerosis. It's really common it's a protozoa that's really common in a lot of people that have been on antibiotics, like blastocystis hominis, entamoeba also, but the tapeworm is definitely a concern. Lisa said, boy, I've got some parasite pictures for you. Not sure what it all is. Make sure, Lisa, to check out our blog post. So I've done one on roundworms in multiple sclerosis. So you can see a bunch of pictures of our students, what they're passing. I've also shared pictures of flukes, of intestinal or possibly liver flukes also. So you'll be able to see, some look like intestinal flukes and worms. So just make sure to because it's really hard to find pictures of flukes online, but we've got a lot on our blog post. And just be aware too that the pictures that I'm sharing, those are from students that are using this oxidizing enema. So they'll do an enema one morning, and then they might do the next enema the next morning. And so the parasite has died and been just kind of sitting there for a few hours. And so the body starts to break it down. So it still looks like a worm, but it's not going to be like perfectly formed like the one I found in my horse's poop. That made me want to vomit. That was awful. Yes, absolutely. So when we're dealing with spinal cord issues, unless it's been an injury that you've had an injury, but it totally can be parasites that get into the spinal cord. Let's see, tapeworm in the blood. You've been sick for 9 months, tremors. Recently, you can't feel your legs and your hands, now under investigation for MS. So AK Entertainment, make sure to check us out, because you can spend a lot of time testing for all of this and then working with practitioners that really don't know how to treat effectively. So you're in the UK. We do have students in the UK. So just so you know, if you need support, please reach out. And tapeworms, we can get them from so many different places. If we have pets, they could be on produce. It could be somebody that prepared your meal in a restaurant. Could be on handles of doors, on shopping cart handles. Parasites, like eggs and the parasites, they are all over the place. The soil. Okay, eosinophils. Yeah, that is a type of white blood cell that is really, it can be higher, elevated in people that have parasites. If people have chronic parasites, it's not always elevated. Awesome. I'm so glad, James. Thank you so much. This topic is spreading like wildfire. That's what I want to hear. Like, it's time. You guys are the foot soldiers. I did all the work. I do all the research, and I do all the publishing and the editing, and it's like hours and hours and hours. And I do this for you so that you can actually help to have evidence, so that you can find a practitioner, or that you understand what you're dealing with. And if you need support, make sure to reach out to us. So from Greece, you've had a certain treatment, ivermectin from the hospital, but just know that, I can't remember, like a tapeworm is not going to be treated by ivermectin. So ivermectin is only going to treat specific worms. You can actually look it up and you can see. So symptoms got worse over ivermectin. So that means that the parasites you have are not being treated. It aggravated them, and we call it angry worm syndrome. So just keep sending the questions in. There are a lot of questions that are coming in, but just, we will have our team answer your questions, but just make sure that you get the support that you need. So AK Entertainment, yes, you definitely need to join the program. And remember, like, it is so, so important to prepare before you treat, to be feeling a lot better, to have daily bowel movements, to be sleeping well at night. When you are feeling that much better, like that one lady too, just with the diet, like she's not getting up through the night. Like she was getting up 6 times throughout the night, and now it's sleeping at, well, she still needs to use a sleep aid because the parasites aren't letting her sleep at night. But we have to use a sleep aid. You've got to sleep. If your immune system is completely exhausted, if it can't help you, we need our immune system to help us in this fight. So we need to be having enough sleep. We need to have daily bowel movements so that when the worms die, that they're coming out daily. So we're not reabsorbing their toxins, their parasites. And then with treatment, it has to be individualized. It has to be based on what you energy test well for. The criteria that we use, number one is, we've gone over a little bit. I'll be done here right away. So number one, the first thing is to make sure that we look at our health history, the health history of our parents, our symptoms, our diagnosis, our energy test results, and the types of worms we're passing from these oxidizing enemas. I'm going to let you guys go. We've gone over an hour here. And thank you so much for all your comments. Thank you so much for joining. It just warms my heart to give you hope, to share this research with you. It's so important, not just for multiple sclerosis, but for many other conditions. And that's why we really need to be proactive with treating parasites before they get into the central nervous system, right? Before we have chronic disease. And so if you're new to all of this, make sure to go to our website, livediseasefree.com, and under blog, you'll see all the articles that I've written. You can even just do searches for like live disease free and roundworms or malaria. Like you'll find all of the different blog posts quickly. I have written a lot of articles. I have a lot of it's just a gold mine of library there for you for research, and it's simplified for people, the average person, so you don't have to be a scientist to understand this. But you're going to get to a place where you're like, thank you, Pam, I get it. I have parasites. I want them out tomorrow, like as soon as possible. I need a plan. I need support. And if you don't have a practitioner that knows how to treat parasites effectively, that talks like we do, then make sure to watch my masterclass training, fill out the form, watch the coachathon, chat with me, and you can get started next week if you like. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful week. Please like, share, and subscribe so that we can get this word out. We can get this incredibly hidden, vital information out to the public. And until next week, take care and bye-bye for now.